Lori Alhadeff is a mother, advocate, and school safety leader whose life was forever changed by the tragic loss of her 14-year-old daughter, Alyssa, in the 2018 shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. In the face of unimaginable grief, Lori turned pain into purpose, co-founding Make Our Schools Safe to protect students and educators and to ensure that no other family endures the loss she carries every day. Through this work, she's helped drive meaningful change, including advocacy for Alyssa's Law, which promotes critical safety measures like silent panic alarms to improve emergency response times. Lori continues to honor Alyssa's life by building a legacy rooted in safety, awareness, and action. Her work reminds us that behind every policy, every protocol, and every conversation about school safety, there are lives, families, and futures at stake. Lori, thank you so much for joining us today on The Sound Off.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a minute since I have seen your face, so I'm really excited to have a little time to dig into all things, make our schools safe, and just catch up with you and introduce you to some of our community members who may not have had the chance to get to a conference or meet you, in the work. So I'm really eager to dig in. But before we do, I would like to ask you that weird question. What is your superpower?
So I would say that my superpower is my daughter, Alyssa. And I live for Alyssa every day. And I have a tattoo that says live for Alyssa. And this is my superpower that just keeps me going and focused.
I can relate. All of our listeners know I can relate on a personal level, and I really feel blessed to have gotten to know her a little bit through you and the amazing work that you have done in her honor, just building this legacy for her and for so many other students and school communities to keep them safe, to ensure that school is a safe place so they can be the people that they're meant to be. So as we kind of kick this conversation off with Alyssa, I'd love to just spend a little more time with her. I'd love for folks to kind of, like I said, learn a little bit about her. I have the benefit of seeing a lot of her in you and in what you have brought into the world, even after everything that you have experienced. But I think she continues to do a lot of good. And the more people, get to know her and the things that were so special about her, what she loved, who she was, what do you want us to know about her?
Yeah. So this is a picture of my daughter, Alyssa. And Alyssa was a beautiful, vivacious, really all-American girl. She loved to play soccer, and she wore the number 8 on her soccer jersey. She was captain of her soccer team. She was probably the smallest one, but had the best technical skills because I played soccer. So when she was 3 years old, I introduced her to the sport, and she played competitive soccer her whole life. And on February 13th, Alyssa played in her last soccer game. She was incredible. Her passing was on, her shooting was on, her heading was on. She was a leader on the field. And when she got into the car, I turned around to Alyssa and I said, Alyssa, you just played the best game of your life.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, Mom. And she just had such a beautiful smile and an amazing laugh. And she was the nucleus of all of her friends. They loved shopping. And it was amazing how much, like $50 to $100, she'd come home with a brand new wardrobe. It was incredible. She was a savvy shopper. And she loved the beach. She loved Long Beach Island, New Jersey, and riding the waves. And it's just really heartbreaking. I just really miss Alyssa so much.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so grateful that you share that with us. I personally believe that's part of the healing journey, and I just think it's an incredible way to honor the amazing person that she was, and I think continues to be through all that you do in her name. It's really just amazing and beautiful. I know she's proud. I'm sure of it.
Well, I think there's signs, and yesterday I was in my closet, and there was a butterfly patch that fell onto the ground. It was just like really random. And the day after Alyssa was killed, I went to this cemetery with my husband, and a big yellow butterfly flew past us. And so when I see butterflies, but this random butterfly patch that just dropped, just let me know that Alyssa's still here, but in just a different way.
Yeah. And I think there's so much truth to that. I feel like the relationship doesn't end. In fact, I feel like it grows, and just learning to be open to, and to just kind of honor and find new ways to continue that relationship, and to know that they're still there, and still right there with us and inspiring us is an incredible thing. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned, gosh, immediately after the tragedy, kind of that reality is setting in, and you're just trying to reconcile that. And it's very difficult, I find, to explain to people that it's almost like an out of body experience. So you're in this moment of just absolute grief and despair, and here you are now. And I think people struggle with how did you get from there to here? How were you able to take that grief and carry it into action, and to really journey along, personally and maybe even professionally in the work that you're doing with Make Our Schools Safe? What's that been like for you?
So immediately after the shooting happened, I feel my husband and I, we just kind of went into action. I ran for the Broward County School Board. I've been on the school board the last 7.5 years.
Amazing.
And then I wanted to do more. And we immediately started Make Our School Safe, nonprofit organization. We didn't know exactly what we want to focus on. We wanted to focus on school safety specifically. And I can remember people saying, well, what else are you going to do? And I'm like, I really don't know right now, but I'm figuring it out.
Good
It's
for you. Good for you.
kind of
There's a lot
just,
of pressure. There's a lot of pressure. What are you going to do? What are you going to stand for? Are you going to do this? Are you going to join this protest or march, or all of the things? I think people don't realize the incredible pressure on families at a moment like this.
yeah, I mean, listen, we're going through such trauma, and it's very painful. And I knew from day one, I didn't want Alyssa's death to be in vain. I wanted everybody to remember who she was. I say live for Alyssa, and that's what my tattoo says, live for Alyssa. And so school safety became our focus. And shortly after the tragedy, one of Alyssa's friends' mom reached out to me and said, I'm working with this legislator, and we have this panic button bill. We'd love to honor Alyssa and call it Alyssa's Law. This was in New Jersey. And I said, yes, that would be wonderful. And then the other part of our organization is mosque clubs. And when I saw the students very vocal about gun control, I wanted students to be focused just on school safety. And so that's how the mosque clubs developed. And then the third part of Make Our Schools Safe is that we raise money, and we've given back over $1 million to schools for creating those layers of safety protection. In my mind, I wanted to make sure that we are protecting our students, and that the guns aren't getting into the schools, and we keep the threat out as much as possible.
So I wonder what it is, if you can take us back, like what was it that in all of that uncertainty and all of that, I'm not sure. I know we're going to do something amazing for her. Because I can relate to that, but not necessarily knowing just what it was going to be. How did school safety emerge for you? Because it did for me too. But why school safety?
Because I want to get things done and accomplished and take action. And I think school safety is not polarizing. We all can agree that we want to send our kids to school. So it doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. We all want to send our kids to school. We want them to be educated, to be safe, and come home alive.
Yeah.
And so that was just the lane that we wanted to focus on. And I do feel that we have accomplished a lot in the 8 years since the tragedy, and will continue to do so and just grow upon that. I'm the type of person, I just want to get things done.
Yeah. Uh, that's why I love you. I think it resonates so deeply with me too, and my husband. I think you centered your mission, your work, your recovery journey really around Alyssa. We did the same thing, and then choosing something to honor her with, it felt really important for us, and it sounds like you too, that it be something true to her spirit, not divisive, not political, not angry, but like, let's get to work, let's get to work now. So, does that resonate with you? Is that kind of how you think you landed on school safety versus, maybe marching on the Hill or advocating for this or, that or the other? Because there are obviously so many complex issues around keeping our schools safe.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I say, like, I lived in the Parkland bubble here. We're a very affluent community. I never thought that my daughter would be shot 8 times in her English classroom. And so the focus on school safety was just seemed like a natural thing for us to focus on, and things that I could wrap my head around, where I can accomplish creating these different layers. And it's not just about school hardening. I definitely look at mental health as a strategic part of school safety,
Hmm.
and really getting to the root causes of the issues that these kids are struggling with every single day. And we just recently had a friend of mine, mental health counselor, create a mental health journal for high school kids. And she did it with her daughter, who's a teenager. So it's really, really focused on teenagers, which I think that's amazing for kids to be able to write in their journal, to kind of work out all the issues that are going on in their life. And they have a lot of things that are going on and very different from when we were kids.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one of my favorite things, honestly, about what you have created in Melissa's honor is that it is very student centric. You talked about the three prongs essentially of the work and how it connects, to mental health and to other important aspects of school safety. But I just have to give it to your friend who came to you and said, hey, we're working on this. Is it okay with you if we honor Alyssa by putting her name on that? There's so many things about that are beautiful that I just want to unpack for a second. The first is that a lot of people want to do wonderful things for our families, for our loved ones following a tragedy. And sometimes along the way and in their excitement and really just looking to feel better, they'll do those things without asking the family. And I think it's just such a very trauma informed thing, a good friend thing to come and say, listen, does this align, with how you want Alyssa remembered, how you want to build her legacy? Because you are the custodian. You are the one, the keeper of Alyssa's legacy. And I just think it's such a beautiful thing. And also, of course, that it did align, so beautifully with the mission that you were building. I think when we talk about response time in school safety, we're looking at how can we shave seconds to how can we get there faster? How can we save lives? And so I'd love to talk a little bit about that piece. Why specifically is that such a crucial piece of the work of Alyssa's Law, for example, within Make Our Schools Safe?
So on February 14th, the shooter walked onto the campus with the gun bag, and our security monitor knew it was Crazy Boy with the gun bag. And he didn't call for a lockdown. They were using like code red at the time. And I always say that if only he had his panic button and he pressed the panic button, then everybody could have gotten to their safety protocols. Alyssa was in room 1216, which Alex and Elena were also murdered in that classroom. And Alyssa was very smart. She was fast. If she knew where to go, she was in the direct line of vision from the door, and the shooter shot directly at her and then went down the hallway. And unfortunately, he came back to Alyssa's classroom where she was killed, and she was still in the direct line view of the door. And a few months after, so that was a crime scene. And if you remember, they had different elected officials to go through that building just to try to learn from our tragedy. And my husband and I, we went into Alyssa's classroom, and it was horrific. There's still glass on the floor. I remember seeing like stuffed animals from, because it was Valentine's Day, blood on the floor in the back of the classroom. And so I know how vitally important it is to have fast response time in these emergency situations. One of the things I say is time equals life. The faster that we can get help on the scene, the more lives that we can save. And this has been used in the Appalachia shooting. A student saw the gunman on campus, told their teacher, and the teacher pressed their panic button. And the 9 people that were shot, they all lived because EMS got there faster to triage them and save their life.
It literally matters. Every second matters. And you know this better than anyone. And I think when we think about something so practical as a button, there are so many things about being a human being in crisis. Your brain is not working correctly. We had these protocols in place. You guys had protocols in place. The kids, they responded, exactly as they were supposed to, exactly as they had practiced. But, for those moments of hesitation of what do I do? Do I radio? Do I call 911? Right? That button is something that you don't really have to put a lot of thought into. It's instantaneous. I don't even have to formulate the words, right? To communicate to somebody that we've got a problem, we need help immediately. So I think that has been well, I know. I mean, it's not just been a message received from Make Our Schools Safe, but it's also been something that schools across the country. Can we talk about how many different states now have enacted Alyssa's law because of the work that you have done?
Yes, 12 states we've passed Alyssa's law in. Hmm.
I mean, that anybody who's listening who knows anything about what the process is like, legislating, advocating, all of that, that is an enormous feat. And beyond that, there's not a place that I go in the country where people aren't familiar with the law. Maybe they're working on it, maybe they're bringing it in and it's in discussion. And even where it's not actively, enacted in law, folks are using it as a guide, and they're saying, you know what? These 12 key leading states have enacted this as law, and, you know, it's happening. It's going to take time in our state, but we're not going to wait, right? We're going to prioritize shaving those seconds to really expedite the emergency response.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to just say too is predominantly it's going to be used for medical emergencies.
Yeah, you're
So,
right. Right. That's what we face most often. And from my experience as well in education, and that's what we're facing on the regular.
yeah.
Missing student, or a student who has taken off. That would happen pretty
Mhm.
frequently. I would have really liked that button, Lori, when I was teaching in a couple places. That would have been really, really helpful, and really just made me as an educator feel so much more confident, that I
Yeah,
can get help if I need help, right?
for sure. Yeah, we in Broward County, we are the 6th largest school district in the country, but it's used on the average about 800 times a month district wide, predominantly for behavioral problems, medical emergencies, elopement.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
got it. I mean, and all of those really take a lot of time, energy, stress. There's a lot of disruption even, in terms of academics and things that we're trying to accomplish in schools, right? So there are just numerous benefits. But I really am excited about the student engagement piece, about how you're giving voice to students, how students have an opportunity through the Moss Club, and it's an acronym, guys, Make Our Schools Safe. So those clubs, providing that voice, providing that leadership, engaging students, because they're the leaders right now, they're the eyes and the ears, but they're also going to be the ones who we raise up in our communities who advocate for the hard work, the long haul of making our schools safe. So what's that been like, engaging with teenagers?
Yeah, the Moss Clubs have been amazing. They're in the schools, really helping to create a culture of safety in their school. They have a board, so there's a president, a vice president, and they have meetings. They have a teacher advisor. We call them Moss Moms and Moss Dads, where we get parents involved to help with the Moss Clubs to be a part of that. And then they bring in people to speak at their meetings, whether it's an elected official, an SRO, a mental health person, to talk to them about whether it's anti-bullying or kindness or something with mental health, to really educate the students, give them resiliency skills, teach them CPR, first aid, how to use a tourniquet. And one of the Moss Clubs in Fort Lauderdale High School, they did a school safety pep rally. They brought in an elementary school to their club. They did different safety activities with them. It was a really amazing day. And just really getting the kids in tuned with the safety at their school and being a part of that, collaborating with their administration to help to create a safer environment within their school.
It's just amazing. So it's one of the things I think as a teacher that I think is so exciting. We also have a similar program, Safe and Sound Students, and it's on my list to find some time with you to look at how we could, kind of join forces in that, because I think that's where unfortunately a lot of our schools are missing the boat. They're not creating the opportunity for our students to ask tough questions, to bring important information to the forefront, and to really step into leadership. And I think, there are numerous leadership opportunities in our schools. There's the honor society, there's student government, all of those types of things. But what's unique, I think, about creating a space for leadership and safety is maybe you don't have to be a straight A student. Maybe you don't have to be the most popular kid in school, or a star athlete like Alyssa was. But there's a place for you, right? And you have important information and can make an important contribution. So I love that piece. You talked about the funding aspect of the foundation too, and I think that is, I mean, that's just enormous. As the work that has to be done to take our aging buildings, even in your beautiful district, we're still retrofitting, right? These buildings, they weren't made for the types of concerns and threats, unfortunately, that our schools and communities are facing. And so there's this constant, behind the eight ball feeling that our school leaders and our parents, and our educators and students are feeling like, we know we need this, but we don't have funds for it. And even more so, most of the funds that are out there are for things, like we do at Safe and Sound training. We do a lot of training. And so there are more grants for that. There's not so much available in terms of, yeah, we need to update our door hardware, right? Or we need to install a visitor management system, those pieces, as you talked about, of layered security. So talk a little bit about some of the schools that have benefited from being able to advance, their safety plans through the grants that Moss has I'm going to say that again. Through the grants that Moss has brought and made available.
So we work a lot of times with our Moss clubs, where the Moss Club students will apply for the safety donation. And that's been really amazing because they really feel so a part of the buy-in of, getting that Stop the Bleed kit in their classroom or putting the ballistic glass on the door. And it's really been so incredible for our students to be engaged and involved in the conversation. But I get it. It's a big issue with trying to get funding for safety. We've put millions of dollars in Broward County Public Schools back into our schools for school safety, and we apply for a lot of grants, whether it's federal grants or through the state. But for Make Our Schools Safe, we predominantly fund the organization through the events that we put on. We just did our Live for Alyssa Gala, which was incredible. And we donated at the gala money for an ammunition sniffing dog for Broward County Public Schools, which they already have two dogs. And so we previously gave them $50,000, and the Moss Club's actually named the dogs. So it's Canine Nitro and Canine Alyssa.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. That is amazing. Wow. So
Yeah.
you're engaging in this way, it's such a learning opportunity too. Of course, I'm a nerd. I like they have to go through this whole application process and then write their application, make their proposal essentially to win the grant funds, which is incredible. And then you end up engaging not just students this way, but you're also engaging law enforcement, community members, local businesses and so on. I feel like that's been an incredible thing to witness, watching your work from afar.
Thank you. Well, and also at the Live for Alyssa Gala, we donated to Delegate Penson from West Virginia they created through Alyssa's Law, the Alyssa Alhadeff School Safety Fund. And we donated $48,888. And then just this week, West Virginia, they donated like 300,000 towards the Alyssa Alhadeff School Safety Fund to help fund these panic buttons. So this was like an amazing, creative, outside the box
Yep.
thinking to put this layer of safety protection in West Virginia schools.
Amazing. Amazing. I mean, so like we talked about earlier, just the reach of this mission has grown exponentially. It's just been amazing to watch.
Thank you.
So, what would you say? We have a lot of school district leaders that sign on to the sound off to just listen in, gain some inspiration on the drive in or the drive home, kind of like decompress a little bit. And what would you want them to understand about their role here, their responsibility, and the opportunities that are available to us today to protect students?
So I would say don't be complacent. Don't think that this is never going to happen to you. You have to be prepared and ready. And training is so vitally important that you train your staff and know what to do in these emergency types of situations. And if you don't know what to do, become educated, right? Learn from our tragedy. Florida's been a leader in school safety, passing a school safety law for the last 8 years. You can go to the Florida Office of Safe Schools. You can check out those laws that we've passed from Fortify Florida, See Something, Say Something, Alyssa's Law panic button to behavioral threat assessments. And then the other thing is that don't just like have this attitude like, nope, I'm good, right? Like we're
Yeah,
perfect. Nothing's wrong with us. You can always improve and get better. And then I would have a risk assessment done at your school to make sure that law enforcement has looked at if there's different vulnerabilities at your school to check to make sure things are going well. There's so many times I'll go into my schools and I'll see so many things,
yeah.
and I'll let the
Hair
super
on fire. Hair on fire. Like
right,
how is
and
that happening, right?
I'll let the superintendent know, and these things have to be fixed. So I think it's important that we're all in this together, students, parents, teachers, administration, and it only takes one person to prop open a door with a pen, and then we have a vulnerability with an unlocked door. So working together, also table topping emergency situations, bringing in your 911 centers, your EMS, fire, law enforcement, SROs, and school and use your panic button to be able to integrate and use that panic button as part of the drilling when you're doing that in your school.
Absolutely. It's if we don't practice with it, it's foreign to us. It won't necessarily work for us because we'll be kind of caught in that moment. So I think that's a really good point that you bring up. So I'd like to take a moment to address other people like you and me, Lori, that sign on to the sound off as well. We feature a lot of people like us that have these unfortunately lived experiences, and have poured all that pain and passion into purpose. And I'm just listening to you talking, and I'm inspired by what you have learned. You didn't know all this stuff 9 years ago, right? It wasn't even on your radar because not here, right? And exactly.
8 years.
Yeah, right. But like I think, pre-tragedy, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when regular days, before all of this, it really does make the point that any one of us can stand up, get engaged, get involved, and make incredible change. So, as we think about families who have experienced loss or trauma, individuals who sign on and are hoping to gain a little bit of wisdom and guidance in their own journey, what would you say to them? What has helped you keep going?
So shortly after the tragedy, we got a golden doodle dog. Her name's Roxy. And Roxy's been very healing for my family, for my two boys. Alyssa's my oldest child, and for my husband. And so she was a great distraction when we got her as a puppy, and she was eating the walls and going to the bathroom everywhere. But in that moment of our most horrific time of our life, it was very helpful for us to be able, my boys were younger too, so for them to have a dog was amazing for them. But I think of grieving as like a roller coaster, in the sense you don't know how you're going to feel in any moment. I could be listening to a song in the car and just start crying because it just hits that point. Or when the butterfly patch dropped from my dresser, it's very triggering. But I think you have to figure out ways to how you're going to de-stress yourself. One thing I try to do is exercise. I play tennis, and then I also surround myself with my friends and family. Having people around, I think, is very helpful for me, and to stay busy and focused and to have purpose. The purpose is really important to help me in my grieving process.
Yep, I second everything you just said. The only difference is it's not Roxy in our house; it's Dash, and I'm so lucky. He's a stinker in a lot of ways, but he's absolutely quiet as a mouse. I don't know how we got a doodle that is quiet like that, but doodles are really amazing. They bring life and excitement, and like you said, a whole lot of distraction, which is one of many things I think that is so helpful. So thank you for sharing that. What I'd like to do at this point is leave you the mic and give you 60 seconds. So if you just had 60 seconds to talk to folks listening in about what's really at stake here. Think of you, but before 8 years ago, right? Think of you. What do you wish that somebody had said to you to really make it clear that building safer schools and continuing that work is not optional, it's urgent?
Yeah, so I wish somebody said to me, be more involved and engaged and know what the safety looks like at your child's school. Don't just take it for granted that everything is safe. Ask questions, because I wasn't involved in that conversation. And so school safety is paramount. It's so important. And like I said before, know what, if you see vulnerability, speak up, say something. See something, say something. You can also go to your school board meetings and be a voice, and create, make sure that there's action that takes place, that school safety is a priority. And we have to do all that we can to protect our kids, to make sure that they're safe and that they come home alive.
Mhm. Well said. It has been an incredible conversation today with Lori Alhadeff and Make Our Schools Safe. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Sound Off.
Thank you.
And Roxy, too.